Alright, after 122 days off of Zwift racing, I am back for my first Zwift race back, and as usual, I am going for the win. No matter how out of shape I am, I'm still going to see if I can take that win on a Zwift, and as usual, have fun with the Zwift race. In this video, I'm going to be looking over my Zwift race, providing some commentary and analysis to show you why I wasn't able to win this Zwift race. Let's dive into the video. Alright, to start things out, this is the Community Racing Series, and this is part of the Z Racing Series for the month of November, and it is on one lap of the Going Coastal course, a very flat and fast course. We started out in the desert, we already made our way through the desert, and we are now probably around halfway through the southern coast, and we're heading in to that section, and ultimately this race will end in that finishing sprint, and it is probably around a 20 to 30 second sprint segment that this does end on, and I know this course pretty well, so I am pretty familiar with the finish and how this course will go for the rest of the thing, so I am pretty prepared, and I know the course probably, I'd say, better than most of these riders in this race, so I do see that as a bit of an advantage that I do have coming into this race. However, I am very rusty. As I said, this is my first race in 122 days. It's been a long cross-country season, but we are back to cycling for a bit. And you can see here, we are in Category C, so that's going to be the 380 to 520 score range for the new Zwift racing score. So that just gives you a bit of an idea of where I'm at right now. 350 to 520, my bad. But that is going to be the third to lowest category, so normally I'm probably going to be in the second to highest category, but after a bit of time off, I decided to go into that third category, even though Zwift recommended me the fourth category. Alright, so this race was around 4 p.m. on the West Coast time, so it is a lot quieter of a race. You can see we only got 14 people in this lead group. Normally, in like the European races, you're going to see like upwards of 100 riders, which makes it a big blob just riding to the finish for a sprint finish. But by having a smaller group, we could potentially see some tactics or some breakaways later on during this race, so do keep an eye out for that. You can see here, things are looking really relaxing though. I'm going around 130 watts and I'm keeping my heart rate very controlled. Everything's looking very smooth. It feels nice in the legs and it's nothing too serious, not too strenuous of a ride. You see here, I'm sort of just sitting in with this group. I'm not going to try anything special because this is my first race back, so I'm not really sure what I have fitness-wise. So I'm just playing it pretty conservative in this race and I'm just following every move that I do see come up. Bit of a surge here. You can see we move up to around 250 to 270 watts. Nothing too major, and I'm just doing whatever I can to stick with this group. Honestly, nothing here is feeling too bad at this point, and I am on the watch out because there are some riders who earlier on in this race have been punching pretty hard on some of these climbs, and I've been putting a bit of a gap in, so I've had to close a couple of those gaps so far. You can see right there on the far left-hand corner of my power graph that I did put in a pretty big dig. That was around 300 watts. Just to try to keep up with one of those riders who was really pushing the pace. Speaking of which, you're actually going to see one rider putting a really big dig right now, and I am up to 300 watts, 320 watts, and this is pretty hard for me, and I am just pounding on those pedals right now. I'm out of the saddle and I'm just trying to make sure that I can stick with these top riders here. You see here the gap has formed between this one rider all the way out front doing around 5 to 6 watts per kilo. I'm going to try to bridge that gap along with the help of these other riders. We got that Canadian rider up front that I am going to bridge up to, and I am now right along next to him and I have moved past him, and right here I'm just going to put in one more small dig so that I can get past this rider and potentially cause a little bit of split here. I'm thinking that I can potentially cause a little bit of split that would help thin out the field so that I don't have as big of a field that I need to out sprint in the finishing sprint. So you can see here I continue to push on to around 240 watts before laying off the power. I saw that the group was pretty strung out. I did some decent damage, enough to tire some of those other riders who were already struggling out, and I'm now just easing back off so I can just put in a little surge to catch back up to this group and then just stick in that draft as we head into this sprint here. Coming into this sprint right now, I actually considered using my aero boost because I knew that I could just get another power up once we go through this power up arch, but I decided in the end to just save it and make sure that I have it for later on in the race. I knew that I would get another power up if I decided to use it, but I have the aero boost, and that's going to be the thing that's going to help me the most in that finishing sprint. Aero boost, my personal favorite power up, really helps me in those finishing sprints. You can see here that I probably could have used it and gotten another decent power up, because there is another rider off the front. You can see that fire trail that they are producing, and now we are on. The race is now on with around a couple miles left to go, and everyone is pushing massive watts. I'm up to around 250 watts or 5 watts per kilogram, just trying to hold on and chase. You see here, I'm putting in another dig so I can start to move up in this group, because I don't want to be left in the dust and potentially fall off from a major split that could be happening right now at this point in the race. So you see that that rider is still off the front, but I've laid off the power quite a bit. I'm letting the other riders do the work now. I did the work for the other pole, and I'm just letting them do everything so that I can just recover as best as possible and still stick with this lead group, because I need to be with them if I want to be able to contest for this win. I'd rather put in all of my power right now than have to wait and save everything and be sprinting out the second group. So it always, in my mind, it's going to be better to put in the effort now so I can be with the lead group going to the finishing sprint than to use all my power now and just be able to put in a big sprint in the second group. As I expected, things started to settle down quite a bit, so we're now going to fast forward a bit through this more boring section of the race and head into that final stretch of the finish. Now, my plan coming into the finish of this race is to really wait until the first 2 or 3 riders go, and then as soon as they have gone, turn on my power up and just start sprinting immediately and just go as hard as I can possibly out the gate so that I can just get as much momentum, because I know that this is a slight uphill finish, which means that getting that momentum early on is going to help you a lot more than having a slower, more gradual sprint. So I want to have that maximal burst of power at the start and just hold it for as long as possible. Now, as we head into that final mile, I am very happy with how the race is looking so far. Everything is going as planned. I'm still with this lead group. I'm making sure that I'm not falling too far behind. I'm just staying really nicely tucked in there. You can see on my power graph, I'm not spending much energy. My heart rate is pretty controlled since I do have a pretty high heart rate maximum. 170 is honestly not too bad for me. And I'm just sticking in there and staying nice and comfortable. And now we are into that final mile, and this is where things start to matter. And as things start to ramp up here into the final half mile, you can see here that my power graph is slowly ramping up. That's something that I highly recommend doing as you come into these finishing sprints, is to start to ramp your power up to make sure that you are remaining towards the front of the group. You don't want to be holding the same power and just slowly drifting back and back and back, because everyone at this point is getting more excited, and as a result of that, they're increasing their power ever so slightly, and that's going to lead to you getting dropped if you are not paying attention and increasing your power alongside them. So that's something that I've learned over the course of the last few years on Zwift, is that I got to be sort of slowly moving up into this finishing sprint. And you see here, now we're getting very close to the finish. We've hit that line, and now everyone starts to go. I turned my arrow power up a little bit too early, in my opinion. I didn't really start my sprint until right here. This is where you see that burst of power up to 600 watts. And that using the arrow boost early really did cost me here. You see here that I do move up, and I'm all the way into first place here. I genuinely think I'm going to win, but I just see this rider come flying by with his arrow boost, and another rider behind him not even using his arrow boost, but just pounding out 10 watts per kilogram. Overall, my timing with my arrow boost was ultimately what probably costed me second place. I don't know if I really could have gotten first. First place had a really strong sprint, so kudos to that rider. But I think that I could have just edged out second place because I was very, very close. And if I had turned on my arrow boost probably just around 1 or 2 seconds later, that would have probably helped me a lot more than using it early on where it didn't really do any benefit to me. So that's sort of just something that you'll learn over time, and I've sort of learned that over time, but I'm a bit rusty now, so my timing is sort of all whack, but I think I will get that back as we continue on racing into this indoor cycling season. Let me know what you thought of my Zwift race. Did I play it well? Is there anything else I could have improved? And if you enjoyed this video or found it useful, please leave a like, subscribe. It really does help support the channel. And with that, thank you all for watching, and ride on.